Hi folks, let's talk about the first major essay assignment. As you see here, it's going to be due June 11th, but there will be due dates for the rough draft to your group members, and you will be doing critiques of this as well. But those due dates will be given to you in the announcements about the first rough draft workshop. But this is a rhetorical analysis that you'll be doing, and it's a fairly standard assignment for 122. Most instructors will ask students to complete this particular assignment. And essentially what this asks you to do is to pick one argument. That's all I'm asking you to do is pick one source, and there's going to be a list further down in the document, which I'll show you in a second. Pick one essay or a TED Talk and do a rhetorical analysis of that particular source. And essentially what this means is that, as I say here in this document, I think you can see it, you are going to essentially break apart the essay, identify its component parts, particularly its strengths and weaknesses. Most good writers know how to structure an essay properly. And so they have various tools that they use to strengthen their arguments. And what I'm going to ask you to look at are the forms of appeal and informal fallacies. And so there are essentially four forms of appeal. I actually argue that there are five, and you'll get the fifth one in a later video. Ethos, pathos, logos, kairos, and I would add style, appeal to style or through style. But there are other things that you can look at, like audience awareness and various informal fallacies. And so what you're essentially doing is identifying the strengths and or weaknesses of one of these essays or the TED Talk. You can do solely based on the strengths of the essay. So you're analyzing, you're saying that each of these elements is a particular strength in the essay. You can do a combination of strength and weakness. Identify maybe two or three strong elements to the essay, and then identify perhaps one or two weak points in the essay, or just one. I've never had a student declare that the entire argument was weak. These are classic essays, and the TED Talk is a classic as well. It's actually, I think, the most viewed TED Talk out there. But I think it would be difficult for anybody to say that that the entire argument is a weak one. But hey, if you want to give it a shot, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you not to. So anyway, you're just essentially breaking this down into its component parts and identifying its strengths and weaknesses. And I'll give you more information on the forms of appeal and informal fallacies later on. So if we go through this document, as it says here, it's going to be, the final draft is going to be due in D2L by 11:59 p.m. Thursday, June 11th. And this particular assignment is worth 100 points, quite a bit, 10% of your final grade. So keep that in mind. We're looking at 1,000 words or more. I'm looking at 3 to 4 pages, typed, double-spaced, and again, look at that sample essay in the MLA sample essay folder to figure out how to format your essays properly according to MLA guidelines. This is a rough breakdown of what your assignment should look like, 150 to 200 words summarizing the argument. I mean, you're going to have to do that for your reader. You're not just going to immediately dive into critiquing the essay, because you might confuse your general audience. So you want to spend some time identifying the argument, identifying the author, the title, and summarizing the argument itself. But most of the work is in the rhetorical analysis itself, and you want to spend at least 800 words analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of the argument. So it should have a thesis statement. It should have that summary and then that analysis. It should be formatted according to MLA guidelines, as I've already said, but I'm just reading what's listed here. There are sample essays. If you go into the contents folder, you'll see a folder called sample essays, and there are essays in there written by former students who, for the most part, I think got A's on the assignment. So you can get a sample at least 2 rhetorical analyses done by former students who got A's. So if you've email me saying that you don't really understand the assignment, my first response is going to be that you should look at one of the sample essays, and that should give you a pretty good idea of what it is I'm looking for. So on the second page, there are your choices for the first assignment. So just pick one of these sources. You're going to be required to read both of the essays and watch the TED Talk, because there are reading quizzes associated with these. I don't want you to just pick one right away off the bat and stick with that one. You might actually, like one of the others if you actually read them or watch the video. So your 3 choices are An Image of Africa, Racism in Conrad's Heart of Darkness by the Nigerian author Chinua Achebe. It's a classic essay in which he analyzes Joseph Conrad's classic novella Heart of Darkness, and basically declares that it is racist and that Conrad himself is racist. The TED Talk is called The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, another Nigerian writer. It is, as I said, a classic TED Talk. I think, from what I understand, it is one of the most viewed TED Talks out there. And she talks about the danger of a single story, and that is essentially the myths and stereotypes associated with particularly Africans, but other ethnicities as well. And then the final one is Songs of Ignorance by Robert J. Pipers, which focuses on, again, myths and stereotypes associated with the African continent. And Songs of Ignorance is actually a reference to Band-Aid and which you'll learn about later. So don't worry about that. If you don't know anything about Band-Aid, don't worry. But you'll read about it, and we'll actually watch the video later, the music video. Here is the range for, this is a checklist essentially for an A essay. I will provide a rubric later in the essay assignments folder. But if you can go through this with your final draft, rough draft, and check off all these boxes, then you're probably going to get an A. Just my guess. That's it, folks. If you do have questions, feel free to ask them in the box below, and I will try to answer as promptly as I can. But again, my first response will probably be to look at those sample essays if you need guidance. And if the sample essays aren't enough for you and you need still more guidance, then feel free to ask me some questions. But this document, again, I'll provide a link to it and it is available in the essay assignments folder. That's it.